Dear brothers and sisters in Pan-Africanism, good morning or good evening. Depends where you are on earth. It is always a pleasure for us to reach you beyond the Francophone zone. Please receive our greetings of brotherhood wherever you are on earth. Camarade Kalafo of MPR France CFA, leader of the Pan-Africanist movement against the French colonial currency, France CFA, which is still in use in 14 African countries, and plus Comoros with a Comorian franc. Before I go deep in my conversation, in my communication, please let me send my regards to our elders in Pan-Africanism, the ones who inspire us toward this right path, which is in true the only way to develop Africa, to build a better Africa. Glory to them, glory to our brothers and sisters who follow us today in this path of Pan-Africanism, and also glory to all the people who will follow this path after we pass on. Today again, in front of this camera, to talk about Africa, to talk about the Sahel, to talk about Mali, not by vanity, but by patriotism toward Africa, the motherland. I understand we all must strive to build a better Africa for Africans and stop begging worldwide. That has to stop. My communication of today will be wired around the Sahel, and especially the statement of the French President Emmanuel Macron. Worth to remember that last week the French government suspended its joint military cooperation with Mali following the second coup that we call the process of rectifying the transition. Following that situation, Mali was suspended from many international organizations, among them African Union, ECOWAS, even the Francophonie. They don't want us to speak French anymore. Anyway, and the suspension that come like a stone in a pound was the suspension of the joint cooperation between the Malian and the French army. And the ongoing situation has ended up this week by the statement of Macron saying that it's gonna end Barkhane. Barkhane is a French troop in the Sahel in order to help, as they said, to fight against the terrorism. So worth to remember that the chaos that's happening now in the Sahel has really started when they destroy Libya, France and his allies, and this was the time that a horde of jihadists, of independentists, and uh, drug dealers went to Mali, and that's had end up in collapsing the security at all level. And we witness three big regions gone in few days, and they're being put under the control of this horde of independentists, jihadists, and drug dealers. And and later on, the Malian government asked for help, asked for assistance, and they called the French government to come in. And the French government sent the troops called Serval, and Serval, and worth to point out that time the president was François Hollande, and Serval did a really great job with the Malian army. They kicked it out, the bad guys, out of two big regions in the north, Gao and Tombouctou. But the French, when they arrived at the doorstep of Kidal, the French said to the Malian government, Malian soldiers, that they have to stop. They are not allowed to go with them in Kidal to free Kidal. That was the betrayal. That was the hypocrisy of the French army toward the Malian people, because that was the time all those people that we call independentists, that we call today terrorists, and that we call today drug dealers, all those people, they find themselves in Kidal. Sometimes they are terrorists, sometimes they are independentists, and sometimes they are drug dealers. So hard to know who is who. And this situation, when it occurred, Malian population stood up and asked for answers. And slowly, we saw a move that come in another name. Instead of Serval, another coalition was put up and called Barkan. And we end up in 2015 with a paper, a cease of fire paper, a paper that we call an agreement, but an agreement imposed by the French government and the international community. We call the treaty Accord d'Alger. And Accord d'Alger is a treaty that is really hard to implement in Mali. Above 93, 92, I will say even 95% of the Malians are against the implementation of that treaty. The treaty has been signed since in 2015. It can be implemented because this treaty put up two different citizens with different rights in the country. And that's not acceptable. And that's why the treaty has not been implemented since the signature. And everyone knows in Mali that the French government is behind the implementation of the treaty. They are the one pushing to implement this accord against the will of the majority of Malians. So it's worth to remember that when Barkhane arrived, not all the Mali flag was in red. As we know now, it's all in red. The security crisis used to be in the northern regions, but now it's covered almost two-thirds of Mali. It's now in the center of Mali. And for so long, by the lack of result, of tangible results, we stood up and asked answers because Barkhane is in Mali. Also, you have MINUSMA, which is the United Nations Mission of Peace in Mali. You have so many forces, military forces in Mali. And then all those forces didn't change much with all the gunpowder, the intelligence, everything. But insecurity kept growing, growing, growing. And now two-thirds of Mali is in red. Nowhere is secure. And it spread the insecurity. It spread to neighbor countries. Niger, Burkina Faso. It spread everywhere. And we stood up asking for answers. And that was the time in 2020, Macron, the French president, organized a meeting, the summit of Po, when he called all the African leaders in Sahel to come join him. And this was the time he came up with the idea to put some type of forces called Takuba. Takuba. And it's the last statement, the statement he just did two days ago or 3 days ago is now to stop Barkhane and to keep going with Takuba. And all this is just, for us, they're just playing game with the people's lives in a Sahel. This is the truth. Because what's happening now, France is not withdrawing his troops and is calling in true OTAN, is calling OTAN to come and fight the terrorism in the Sahel. And France is doing all this because we are standing up to call the Russia in. Because Russia has proven his ability to stop the disorder in Central Africa, currently even in Syria. Because to be honest, France is following his interests. And we as a Sahelian, we must follow our interests. And our interest is not to die with France. Even so, we need a superpower to gather intelligence and to get guns and more training to do better against the bad guys. But France is talking on behalf of the Sahelian countries to get involved with OTAN in the Sahel. This is another act of hypocrisy. As we all said, as we always said, France is not a credible country that African countries have to deal with it. And this is the truth. We all already witnessed the ongoing situation with the colonial French currency, CFA, changing the name. They stole the name of ECOWAS. They want to make they change the name. They want to use ECO. It's all games. It's all games. It has to stop. It has to stop. It has to stop. This is serious. We can't afford watching France playing with words and playing with people's lives, African lives. It has to stop. It has to stop. All we want is France to leave the Sahel, and we will get another partner which is strong, which has more gun power to help us to solve this problem. France is the problem. This is the honest truth. France is the problem in solving this security crisis in the Sahel. For a long time, the Malian government wanted to engage conversation, direct conversation with the so-called jihadists. But France doesn't want any conversation with them. All France wants is to fight against them. But even that, France can do it. It's worth to ask how many terrorists, how many so jihadists we have in the Sahel. How many are they? That's worth engaging all the gun power, all the intelligence worldwide to solve the problem. So, and we all know that this fight against terrorism, it's a, it's a communication. It's a communication. It's all about the truth. The truth is all about controlling resources. It's all about controlling resources in the Sahel. All the wise people know that. So it's time to stop. It's time to stop and to end the struggle of people, of Africans living in Sahel. It's time to stop. And in order to stop, we we're gonna keep our engagement with the communities to stand up for it, to stand up for it, to stand up for it. All the civil society organization, we want all of them to come together and to stand up for it, to stand up for it. Already in Mali, there is a planning of a bigger mobilization in the 25 of this month, 25 June. Same in Spain. We're organizing a really big Pan-Africanist mobilization against the French hypocrisy in Spain. So we call all our brothers in Europe to gather in Spain, 25. Also in Burkina Faso, there is a conference, a press conference in 15, in 15 June, in a few days. There is a big conference there. It will be held in Ouagadougou, the place called Bourse du Travail. Bourse du Travail. We don't want OTAN in in the Sahel. We don't want that. We don't want OTAN. OTAN has never solved any any security crisis. We don't want the Sahel to become another Afghanistan. We don't want that. We don't want that. And all the problem of the Sahel start when they destroy Libya. This is the truth. People in the Sahel, we still suffering from this insecurity. We have lost so many lives. The last 10 years we have lost so many lives. So we want another solution, another solution in our own way, in our own way, in our own way. If that require conversation with the so-called jihadists, we want to do that. And if that require getting in another power like Russia, we will do that. We will do that. It's true. It's true that Barkan fell. Barkan fell to stop the so-called jihadists. Barkan fell to bring security in the Sahel. And it is true that there is a growing a growing confusion between the European forces, even in Takuba, because Belgium and Denmark, they want to leave that force. They don't want to leave any soldier there on their behalf there. So that's another situation. So saying all these things, all this coming, Emmanuel Macron wants to make a deal with OTAN and invade the Sahel. And we find that very, very absurd. Very, very absurd. It's not his business. He can't make decisions on behalf of people living in the Sahel. So it's time for Africans to stand up. No more of this type of bullshit. Now, we can't let anyone, any superpower, making decisions on our behalf. Any decision that is made without us is not for us. We will reject. As simple as that. So it has to be clear in all the minds. And also for people among our population, especially the one who are not very deep in history of nations. Those people need to understand that calling to die Russia in Mali or in Sahel is not a weakness. It's a strategic alliance to get somewhere. We are Pan-Africanists and we believe that Africa must walk and stand by herself. But the truth is, today we don't have even satellite to gather military intelligence to help our armies to fight against the terrorists, the so-called terrorists in the Sahel. We don't have that. So we need some type of alliance, a win-win alliance that can help us to handle this situation, this security crisis, and to get back to the development. We can't support endless war. We can't. We can't afford that. We can't afford that. Politically, economically, we can't afford endless war. It has to stop. It has to stop. Also, it's clear, it's very important that all Africans understand that between countries, it's about interest. It's about interest. It's about interest. France, through Macron, his president, is following the interest of France, protecting the interest of France in Africa. France, in keeping the franc CFA, changing Serval to Barkhane, and now changing Barkhane to Takuba, or calling the OTAN to come to Sahel. It's all about protecting the French interests in this part of the world. So we as Africans, as Malians, as people living in the Sahel, we should stand up too. We should stand up to protect our interests. And protecting our interests means to try asking France to leave. Because for 8 years, France didn't do anything to solve the security crisis in this part of the world. You just need to look at the Mali flag. It's all come to red. It all come to red. Only few towns are not in red. The capital city and a few Ségou, Sigasso, and few part of Mali, Kai. All the rest is in red. Some part are in orange. And when they gonna go red? France is I want everyone to understand that France is fulfilling his duty. Emmanuel Macron is fulfilling his duty to protect the France interest. This is the sad truth. They're doing in a real ugly way. Hypocrisy and a lot of bullshit. But they're doing all this in name to protect the French interest. We all know how big are the businesses, the French businesses there. So many multinationals, so many companies in the French-speaking countries. So the French is always there to protect his interests. It's up to us now to stand up and protect our interests and defend our interests. And when it comes to this security crisis in the Sahel, France can't solve the problem. We've seen France in 8 years. So protecting our interests is to ask France to leave. Ask France to leave and get another superpower in, another strategic military alliance to get rid of the bullshit in the Sahel. It's important. And we should ever not wait for that. All this will be easier for African Union to handle if African Union had an army on behalf of Africa. Let's say if they did earlier put up some forces like African defense forces, take 3,000 or 2,000 soldiers from each country and take another 3% or 2% of GDP of each country. We are, for instance, 54 countries, and they could build a base somewhere and build a strong army that can protect Africa and put up a satellite there to gather intelligence that could help today. And we won't need any superpower to be there in Africa. We are Pan-Africanists. We don't want to be begging any superpower. But we want change. We want change. And that change is not going to happen like that. No. So we have to get intelligence alliances till we are strong enough to walk in our own. It's very important. It's very important. So throw out for a while our ego. Let's kick it out the French troops and let's get in the Russian army to help us with this situation. The Russian army has proven in Syria, even now in Central Africa, his ability to solve disorder like this. So we have two ways to go with it. Engage the conversation with the so-called brothers, so-called jihadists, the one who want to come and join the nation and fight with the guns, the one who doesn't want to do it, the one who refuse. The country, the nations won't have any choice. We witnessed what's happened in Afghanistan. The developed country, they didn't want the Taliban to engage any discussion with the power in Kabul. But today, they engage conversation, and all this coalition is leaving Afghanistan. They're all leaving now. So it's worth to note the mistakes in the past and to handle better the present and the future. So let's stand up for Africa. Let's stand up for Africa. Let's stand up for Africa. It's important. It's important. It's very, very important. God bless Africa. God bless Pan Africanism. God bless Sahel. God bless Mali.